This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Welcome to the Fat to Fierce podcast. My name is Amy English, emotional eating coach and creator of the Fat to Fierce Life Coach program. In today's episode, I'm talking about the awakening. This is a fun story. Okay, so when I say the awakening, what I'm referring to is that moment in life when you know something's got to change. You can't keep doing things the way you've been doing them because it's not getting you where you want to be. It's almost like you're focusing on the wrong thing, and then a light bulb, I like to call them light bulb moments, okay? Like a light bulb literally goes off above your head, like in the cartoons. And you have this like aha moment and this realization that it's time to do something different. You may not know exactly what, but it's like a little voice inside that is saying, we got to go about this in a different way. And we're going to go ahead and find out. Let's start digging. Let's start looking. It's this realization that it's time for something new, and it's likely going to alter your life as you know it. That is the awakening. And that is what happened to me in 2013 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had an awakening. Obviously, breast cancer can be very scary and can be very life-altering, as can any major diagnosis. And what I'm going to talk about here today is kind of the life I had before breast cancer and life after breast cancer, because it feels almost like I lived two different lives in one. The version of me prior to breast cancer is very different than the version of me post breast cancer. And a lot of that has to do with the awakening, the realization, the aha I had when I was first diagnosed. So let's dive in, shall we? All right. Prior to breast cancer, I was what I like to refer to as a serial dieter. Now, what that means is that I was dieting constantly, always on a diet. I struggled with my body image and with emotional eating, specifically stress eating, for a very long time. I have been on dozens of diets, worked with numerous personal trainers, tried tons of different products, all in an attempt to lose weight and keep it off. And I did this for a long time. It started in my preteen years and went on for decades. And the thing is, I was really good at it. I mean, someone does something for 30 some years and chances are they're going to, kind of become an expert. And I was good at weight loss. I could lose a lot of weight. Problem is, it would always come back because I had this sneaky habit with food that didn't seem to ever go away. And I didn't think I had any control over it. Okay. So, as I said, I was good at weight loss. In fact, in November of 2013, I lost 100 pounds. 100 pounds. That's a big accomplishment. And I celebrated for a few minutes until I decided I needed to lose more. I had to reevaluate my goals, figure out, okay, just another 20 pounds, another 30 pounds. I wanted to lose more weight, I was still not satisfied. Losing 100 pounds wasn't enough. I was still disgusted when I looked at myself in the mirror. I still treated myself like a jerk, and I still struggled with food. The thing is, chances are, with that mindset, it was likely never going to be enough, no matter what I lost physically, because I was still hanging on to a lot of negative mental and emotional weight. More on that as we keep going here. Okay. So when I say I still struggled with food, what I meant was I was unable to peacefully coexist with food in the house. I would ask my husband to hide food all the time, specifically sweets. So around, Halloween, any holiday, any time where we had extra candy around needed to be hidden from me. I even went so far to ask him to put a padlock on the cellar door where the Girl Scout cookies were stashed because I couldn't trust myself with all those cookies in the house. I kept wanting to go into the cellar to purchase a box. At the time, he was my daughter's Girl Scout troop leader because, I was dealing with cancer. So I was originally intending to be the Girl Scout troop leader, but cancer, happened and we had other plans. And so he became the troop leader for her Girl Scout troop that year. And so we had all the cookies stashed at our house and it drove me nuts. I was constantly buying a box here and there. And I remember the time I was working from home. This is way before the pandemic. I've been working from home since 2008, just to give you an idea. So I had boxes of Girl Scout cookies stashed in my home desk. Could not trust myself with food. And not only that, but I couldn't peacefully coexist with my body or really even with myself, even after removing 100 pounds. This seriously impacted my overall confidence. And that's what happens when we're focused only on the physical weight and not addressing the negative and emotional weight that we're still hanging on to. That's actually more damaging than the physical weight, in my opinion, because it's that mental and emotional roller coaster that keeps the habits going, that keeps us treating ourselves like crap, and ultimately keeps us in the cycle, right? It keeps us on that yo-yo. Okay. So anyway, going back to when I lost the 100 pounds and I was coming up with a new plan, okay, for what more I wanted to lose. Bam, 2 weeks later. Okay. So 2 weeks after I reached this amazing milestone of a 100-pound loss, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was December 2013. And within the first month of my diagnosis, I gained 30 pounds back. You heard me right. 30. Listen, occasionally I still check the medical records just to confirm I am being factual here. But yes, I gained 30 pounds from the time end of November 2013 to the end of December 2013 after I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And why did I gain back 30 pounds? Well, I just mentioned I struggled with food and I was a stress eater. And so what happens when you're diagnosed with breast cancer or you receive any kind of scary life-altering news, any kind of scary diagnosis? I freaked out. I ate. It was December, holiday times. We had a ton of treats around the house. At the time, I was working in wireless telecommunications, and my clients used to send gifts to the house. And I remember receiving the most delightful tin of holiday brownies. I sat and ate them all. within a very short period of time. So there was a lot of festive food and drink in the house, in the area, and I really just ate my feelings because, as you can imagine, a cancer diagnosis is pretty scary. It brought up all kinds of emotions, a lot of fear, worry, anxiety, stress, fear. If I already said that, I can't remember. You name it, right? It was the whole gamut of emotions. And so at the time, yeah, great. I had lost 100 pounds, but I didn't solve for my habit of stress eating. So I ate all my feelings that came along with the diagnosis. It was then that I had this awakening. Okay. I remember the exact moment it happened. I can still see it in my mind today. We don't even live in that same house, but I remember where I was standing in my home office when it hit me, when I realized I don't need another diet. I don't need another weight loss plan. I need to figure out this problem with food. I remember specifically saying to myself, I've got to figure out how to stop stress eating. That was the moment. That was the shift. As a serial dieter, this was a life altering moment, a life altering realization that the path I was following for so long wasn't working anymore. I had to take a new route. But first, cancer. that was the top priority at that moment, right? I had to deal with cancer, and I did. And thankfully, it was caught very early. I was in early stage cancer, grateful for that. I did go through treatment, and after treatment is when I started looking for something different. I knew I didn't need another diet. I knew I didn't need another weight loss guru to tell me how to shed, those 30 pounds. I knew I needed to find something that could help me figure out this attachment, this unhealthy, toxic attachment that I seemed to have with food. I even tried Overeaters Anonymous. It didn't get me very far. I couldn't find anything or anyone to help me with this struggle I had with food. I mean, let alone body image. I don't even think that was a full realization. I think I knew I was pretty nasty to myself and didn't have a really, healthy outlook on my body. But really, I was focused on the habits with food. That's what I wanted to focus on changing. That was my priority at that point. But I could not find anything or anyone who focused on that area. So I moved on. About a year after treatment, I hired my very first life coach. But it wasn't for this reason. This is what I find so fascinating about this whole story. I hired my very first life coach because, okay, listen, cancer, as like any major medical diagnosis or any major life altering circumstance, right, can really kind of shake things up in your life. And at the time, I realized I no longer wanted to work in wireless telecommunications. I wanted to figure out who and what I wanted to be when I grew up. Okay. Never really knew. So this is what I had hired my very first life coach to help with. And lo and behold, that life coach, actually working with her, we touched on a lot of the food and body concerns. I was not expecting this. Okay. But we touched on a lot of the food and body concerns because they were impacting everything in my life. Food and body and weight loss, these were all an obsession that seeped into every area of my life. And so working with this life coach, who was fabulous, I was introduced to the concept of noticing my thoughts, noticing the sentences I think about myself, just the sentences we think on a daily basis. I think the number now is like 60,000. They say the average human thinks approximately 60,000 thoughts on any given day. Just think about that. Think of how many sentences that is scrolling across your brain, right? And so, working with my first life coach, I was introduced to the concept of noticing these thoughts and listening to my body, listening to my hunger cues, recognizing the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. I'm going to do a whole podcast episode on that one. So stay tuned because that's a big one and it's really important. But when I started paying closer attention to the way I talked to myself and the way I talked about myself, paying attention to all of this really got the wheels turning. And that's when I realized I was focusing not on the outside, I was focusing on the inside. I want to say that again. I was focusing on the inside. And that, my friends, is the piece that had been missing. Recognizing the urges to eat, especially when I wasn't physically hungry, right? Learning to accept my body for exactly how it is. Feeling comfortable and confident in my skin no matter what. Changing the conversation with myself, changing the way I talk to myself, changing the way I talk about myself, having more compassion, less criticism. That's really important. This was the change I was looking for, but I didn't know it at the time. So when I had the awakening, when I realized it was something different, I needed a different approach, I didn't realize this was the approach. That's what I find so cool about this, because I came to this life coach to focus on a career change, which ultimately happened. But really, this was the start of me changing the habits with food. That little voice in the very beginning of the awakening, knowing that there must be a different way, that was my intuition. That's the awakening. That's what started the path to heal my relationship with food, with my body, and ultimately with myself, so that I could take my power back from food. And so that I could reclaim my confidence in myself and in my body once and for all. Instead of listening to everyone else, listen, there's a lot of gurus out there. Everybody knows, everybody has the answers, everybody has the solutions. I know, you got to see my Facebook feed because of what I do for a living. It's all, I get it every day. I see what's out there. But instead of listening to everyone else, I was learning how to listen to me. That is what changed my life forever. Listening to myself, having compassion for myself, not being such a jerk to me anymore. And so here's what I want to offer. If you struggle with stress eating or really any kind of emotional eating, okay? Stress eating is a form of emotional eating. It's turning to food when you feel stressed. And it can feel overwhelming at times, and it can feel like you don't have control. It oftentimes feels like food is in the driver's seat and you don't have a chance. You better go get it just to cure that craving, right? Go eat the stuff so that it'll go away. I know, I lived this for 30 some years. But here's the thing. If you are struggling with food, with emotional eating, with binge eating, with overeating, with stress eating, with boredom eating, any kind of eating when you're not truly physically hungry, maybe even if you don't know the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, maybe it is time for something different. What does that little voice say? Pay attention to it. And listen, if you want to explore this a little bit more for yourself and see how you can get support from someone who gets it and who has been there, please go ahead, visit my website, amyenglishcc.com, Amy English Coaching and Consulting. But it's amyenglishcc.com, and go ahead and book a discovery call. You and I will spend an hour on the phone together or on Zoom so we can see each other's faces and talk about how coaching can help. How coaching can help you change the habits with food, start having more compassion for yourself, feel comfortable in your skin, and enjoy a peaceful bite of food. All right, until next time, I hope you have a great day. Are you ready to take control of your eating, embrace your body, and boost your confidence? Then let's get fierce. Start your Fat to Fierce journey today. Go to amyenglishcc.com for more resources and to book your discovery call.